It's going. It's another beautiful Thursday. In
Yes, and we're back again.
oh,
Hello. Oh, and we have a return of Zay. We've lost Brandon, but we've gotten the cat back. And his
upgrade.
nail is stuck in my hoodie, so he's freaking out. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Unpaid Nobodies.
Glad to be here. And
Yeah,
special guests are always encouraged. So,
of course. We have our mascot back. I'm gonna have to put him in a do rag and take photos.
looks like can you hold them up for the people at home?
Of course, if he will come. Are you gonna come?
The
There you go.
world's softest cat. That tail just looks so soft. I'm just like, yep, I could use one of
He
those.
has
Oh,
returned
yes, the boy.
after several months, really.
He
He's
looks
been
so
on.
mad.
Yeah, no, he's not happy. He
Orange
has
cat
his moments.
activity.
Of course, they are destructive and violent. And if I knew beforehand,
Oh yeah. I mean, my girlfriend's cat is hairless, but
oh yeah,
he's got
orange cat
he's
activities.
got a little bit of like little tufts of fur on his forehead and his nose, and it's orange, and it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, he's a demon.
he can't help it. It's
No.
literally like in their blood.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, we're back. Brandon is missing. He is at a Janae Monet concert at the Aragon this evening. So he's having the time of his life. But the show must go on. Um, should we go through the news then?
Let's do it.
We have a lot to cover. Um, Starting off with the albums, we have Nas and Hit Boy. They're having a collaboration coming out with the Magic 3. Nas is still making music. He's still around. So shout out to him. Another old head, we have Diddy coming out with the Love album Off the Grid with several features all over the place in different genres. So the old heads, this is your week. We also have Rod Rave coming out with Nostalgia. We have Vic Menza coming out with Victor. I know that's going to be a huge release for him. And then we also have Sleepy Hollow coming out with Boy Meets World. So a lot of good releases coming out for the old heads, for the new people, a little taste of everything. Um, but what I think, in my personal opinion, the real highlights are going to be the singles.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
the long awaited with several rumors. Drake is finally doing a song with SZA, which I'm sure is going to be ridiculous streaming numbers. But apparently, this is going to be the lead up single to next week when we're getting the Drake album for all the dogs. Um, we also have Denzel Curry featuring Kenny Mason coming out with Scared, I believe it's called. So I'm super excited for that as well. We have Offset, finally the return of Offset coming out with Fan, which I'm assuming is the lead up to his album. I believe the release date was somewhere in October. We have Doja Cat, another single coming out before next week for her album. The song is called The Loot. I'm excited to see what she brings to the table with this one. I'm assuming another music video because the
Yeah.
rollout has been pretty top notch in terms of rollouts that we've gotten this year. Um, and another quick note on that: "Paint the Town Red" became the first rap song to hit Billboard Hot 100 in over a year.
Bizarre.
So it has been a weird year.
It's like
I'm not upset.
Fiend didn't do it for you. Like, come on.
You would think anything with Travis Scott name on it would top, but
I guess I
I,
guess
I
the
don't know.
criteria for Billboard Hot 100 are different.
That is
I
true.
don't even know what they are, but
Honestly, all of these like things that rate and they're all just for marketing and
yeah.
there's money behind it. There's no real passion or seriousness behind it in my opinion.
Yeah.
But what can you do? Speaking of Travis Scott, there is a super rumor. Playboy Cardi featuring Travis Scott in an unannounced song supposed to be premiering tonight only in Atlanta on the radio station VU103.
I'm gonna press X to doubt on that one, Chief.
We can only hope that that's literally it. That barely even hope, if I'm being honest. But yeah, we'll see if that comes out. That will also break the internet, and we will have several high schoolers trying to burn cop cars. I will be moved. Screaming fiend and whatever this song is. We also have Sexy Red is back. First she had Ski Yee, now she has Hellcat SRTs.
SRT's
So
2 or what's that about?
SRT's 2. I don't know if there's an original one or a first one.
I can't wait for her to just like run out of cars and start naming her songs after like random auto parts. It's gonna be like 1998 Toyota Tacoma pressure gasket or like head
And look,
gasket.
they're gonna bang it at the club. Either way.
For those of you who are at home right now, look up a Toyota Tacoma head gasket for a
Oh god.
1998.
Oh god.
I think that that's the one. Let me just double check before I give our listeners advice.
Head gasket. This is gonna be a deep cut, isn't it?
Oh no, not the head gasket. Which one is it? Water pump.
It's a
Nin-
deep cut.
for our
Water pump?
listeners at home, look up a 1998 Toyota
Jesus
Tacoma
Christ.
water pump gasket.
I'm upset that I looked this up. But it would fit within her themes. It will fit.
New sexy red single just dropped.
Literally, it's just a car part shaped like a penis. And
I don't
dude,
make the rules.
honestly, like I said, it will fit perfectly. I don't know. Do you go on Twitter a lot?
I dabble. I mean, I get notifications for shoes, and then I invariably fall down like the music Twitter rabbit hole, and then the fight Twitter rabbit hole
Yes.
because that's a thing.
Honestly, Twitter right now is out of control. It always has been. The reason I bring it up, Sexy Red, now every time she posts, people just post porn under her posts. So she has a very clear theme and gimmick around her name. If it wasn't obvious before,
Yeah.
now you know.
Well, hey, I mean, if it works, what engagement
If
is
it works.
engagement, right? There you go.
Hella clicks. It works for her.
Yeah.
And then ending us off with the singles, we have Earl Sweatshirt featuring Vince Staples. This is probably another one of the biggest singles going to be coming out, called The Caliphate. I don't really know what it means, but
That is
honest,
it's like a kingdom, but not. It's like territory controlled by a caliph who's like a religious, political, social leader in Islam.
interesting.
So, an example of that would be back in the. Then we're deep cut here. This is the history
I was gonna
minors.
say,
The
this
history
is going to be very interesting.
history minors coming out for this one. Back in the 700s through the year like 1100, Vikings would take the rivers through Russia, going east from where they lived, and go down all the way to what is now modern day Iran. And there they traded with the Abbasid Caliphate, which basically was a society that had written language at the time that was capable of recording these events. They were the ones who traded with Vikings and gave them high carbon steel, which became flexible, high carbon based weapons. So they had way
Yeah.
more advanced weapons and swords than pretty much the rest of Europe for about 300 years. That's why they were so successful, like a big part of it.
Well, then, damn.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that.
There you go. So that's where I learned about Caliphate is the Abbasids, because they were the ones who gave Vikings the tools to basically take over Europe.
Yeah, honestly, would have never known that.
Yeah.
This is what we spend our money on for college, by the way.
Yeah, that was student loans well spent.
Look, it's going somewhere. Like the podcast.
Yeah,
That's
I
actually
mean,
kinda cool.
it's all in the title, unpaid nobodies. $0 for all the knowledge we deploy on the podcast. That's okay.
Just filling it with fun facts.
This
We can go
this
on.
show is sponsored by
Right. Flexible steel.
this this show is sponsored by 1998 Toyota Tacoma water pump gasket.
Man, I can't wait to put that right in the middle of all of our photos. Just place it right there.
Oh, I'm gonna put it in the thumbnail. Don't worry.
You better not be my face. I don't want my face on it.
It's gonna be you laughing with your mouth open. It's gonna be right there.
I'm blocking the video. I'm taking it down.
No, the thumbnail's definitely just gonna be Zay. It's just gonna be an extreme
posted up
close up.
chilling.
Look at him, just a loaf.
He is very comfortable.
Absolute
Honestly,
ginger
I
loaf.
feel like he was ready to come home. He did not complain at all in the car
Yeah,
ride.
I'll bet. Yeah.
But yeah, that's all the actual music coming out. Some other news to kind of go over. We've talked about Earl Sweatshirt. We talked about Doja Cat. Some other more news about SZA. Actually, SZA announced the SOS Deluxe, which is also titled Lana. It's like a whole different album, but it's a deluxe. I'm very confused. but she's
See,
doing that.
yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. Like,
It should just be its own album or a mixtape.
yeah,
Why not a
why
mixtape?
why can't you go the Tyler route and give it like a subtitle? You know, I
Yeah,
think that that's the way to really swing that. But when I hear Lana, all I think of is Archer. So, you know,
interesting. Okay.
Lana.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense then. Honestly, I don't know. I wonder if she'll explain the meaning behind it. Maybe she's got I don't know, a family member named Lana or something. Who knows?
What's
But
her
it's
first name?
well. Now you're gonna make me look up
I was
Sis's
gonna
first
say
name.
we're about to test our knowledge here.
Yeah, no, this is definitely something I have to know. Oh, Solana. I'm an idiot.
There you go.
That that comes together. It all makes sense now.
You've got like the thread up on the wall with like the different pictures being connected, like
Losing my mind. It was two photos. It was
trying to figure out
first
the
name,
alias. Yeah.
album name.
You
Just
can't
one line.
you can't make any actual progress because your fucking cat is jumping up and trying to steal the yarn.
Literally. Would attack it and tear it apart. But all right, that clearly makes sense now. I should have done 2 minutes of research. 2 seconds of research. But we have that. We also have Tory Lanez, for some reason, has requested to appeal the 10-year convention. It's been denied. He is still going to jail. So
I mean,
I want to say good news. I want
valid.
to wish people in jail, but it makes sense. But the biggest news, in my opinion, Jasper, you want to cover the best artists on the planet and with your favorite hobby in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I do have to issue a bit of a correction on this one.
Okay.
So Kid Cudi was spotted with the new Cactus Plant Flea Market collab with Nike, the Air Flea 2, a shoe I'm very excited for. They look like climbing shoes, but for all terrain. Basically, big like out like off road or outdoor vibes. I'm excited
Right.
for it.
Brandon
Now
called it a tactical croc.
it looks nothing material wise. It's nothing like a Croc. But anyway,
Right.
I digress. These are actually not a Cudi collab though. They're just like Nike
Okay.
and CPFM. He's just debuting them. The
Kind of
first
like a
time,
sign or something.
and he actually debuted a new color, which is like this, like I guess like a blue slate color of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time they were ever actually seen was on the feet of Fran. I think it was the first time was at Rolling Loud in Miami, where Franz Lyons wore them on stage. Franz Lyons is the bassist for Turnstile, who we are seeing in concert tomorrow.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I did not know that was like the connection, bring that all together.
Yeah, so I think I sent that photo to the group chat a while back, where it's just like a fun connection. He is wearing the all black pair in those photos, so it's like a black for people who aren't looking this up, it's a black outsole with like the heavy kind of like Nike like dot or square like waffle style sole, but it wraps up around the toe and around the heel to create like this big like protective looking layer. And it kind of is the outsole and the midsole at the same time. Then above that, it's like a neoprene sock with 2 straps that go over it. Now, on the original pair, that neoprene sock is black and the bottom is black. But on the new one that was just unveiled, it's like a blue color, or like I guess it's like a kind of slate. And then the hardware, so the straps over the top and the outsole and midsole are still black. It's just that one color's been changed.
Honestly, they look decent. I don't know if I can rock them, but they
I
look dope.
super mess with these. Like, I love tech wear adjacent style stuff. Errolson Hugh is one of my favorite designers. So like this, I feel falls right in line with that. I'm looking forward to this. I would love, man, if he were still alive, RIP, I would love to see what Virgil could do on like a silhouette like this. Like, I know this is a CPFM thing, but like an off-white variant of the silhouette would be insane.
Be insane, yeah, no. And only his vision would make it work, to be honest. I'm curious if the pins come with the shoe at all, if there would be customizable pins. The Insano would be kind of dope to have on there.
I think they do, and I think they actually go on these little metal spots on the straps. So in that way, it is kind of Croc-like, I guess. It's
Yeah.
just that the materials are just so different. Yeah, I really mess with these. CPFM stuff is pretty notoriously hard to get, so I'm sure these are going to be very difficult to acquire. But the market's down, so who knows if these are actually going to have any resale or and if they do, like what that's going to be, because things are really down right now.
Dude,
So
the market is crashing like crazy. I sold some taxis literally the other day
you
at
sold the
retail, and
taxis?
I was happy. I sold the taxi ones because I got Brandon's not here. We're gonna talk about fashion. I'm gonna grab the shoes.
Let's go.
The Union and Bayfie's Beauty Supply
Oh, you bought
collaboration.
those? You bought
I
those?
got them, and they look phenomenal.
Show it.
So since I got these, and I needed like a kind of
Is it Bayfies or Beffies?
I don't know. I think it's Beffy's. I want to say it's like a tan, grayish color.
Yeah.
And I needed this neutral color, and it's Union. So dope. I fucking love these. These are so nice. So I mean, now that I have these,
Have you worn them yet?
Taxes. I've worn them twice. I want to say. And
Okay.
even these, like these are a collab, and like they don't even. I mean, they flip for a decent amount, but like nothing crazy. You would think.
No, they're going for like 240 to 300 right now. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Back in the day, you hear Union, and it's like a $500 minimum, and now it's like half.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I like the colors. That strip doesn't do it for me.
I will say I was very cautious about the strip until I got it on feet.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, this is kind of nice. I'm not even gonna lie. But yeah, a little shoe segment.
Those are
Jasper,
sick.
did not pull out any shoes because you would pull out 20.
I actually don't have any shoes with me. My place is now subdivided where it's like shoes go upstairs. This is the nerd room, so we've got all the art toys. We got the 3D printer. We got the Summer Smash water bottle. You know, just like the essentials. But yeah, all the shoe stuff's in other rooms, so I wouldn't be able to unless I got up and disrupted us even further.
Understandable. Enough of the distractions, I should say. Can you not scratch up the box, please? And not be an orange cat? Like, I just put it down. Anyway, we have a topic today.
We actually do, contrary to popular belief. Like, big surprise.
We're actually going to talk about something, and we're going to do a deep dive. Last week we had the release of Teezo, right?
Teezo.
That's how you say it? Teezo Touchdown.
Brandon kept saying Tezo, and in my brain I was like
Stop it.
please.
But yeah, Teezo Touchdown is here. He had I would say a very successful release of his first debut album, How Do You Sleep at Night? And to be honest, it was a lot. It was a lot coming into this. I didn't listen to it right away. I waited a couple of days, kind of get a feel out for how the community was judging it. And then I will say I get through it at least twice within the last maybe 3 days. So how many times have you heard?
So I went through it twice as well. Twice on my own, and then I listened to it a third time in the car with family on the way back from like a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then I've like listened to some individual songs. So I'd say we're probably pretty similar in terms of like our exposure.
Okay, that's valid.
I did
Sorry,
listen to it the day it came out, like the morning it came out. I was on it. I was at work. I was zoned in, and I just like listened to it all the way through.
I do recall that, and the word that you used was wild.
It is wild, yeah.
That is definitely something that I can agree with. I was actually curious. Did you listen to any of his music prior to this release? Did you know any of his features or anything like that?
I knew his features, yeah. I mean, he's on Run It Up, Tyler the Creator.
That was the obvious one, right?
So that's like he does the chorus for that. And then my feature of the year so far is him on, Modern Jam. That's like,
absolutely, that's
my jam.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that a whole lot. I did listen to, I think when I put on a couple of his songs, Spotify auto played some of his singles, but not to the point where I would recognize or remember them. It was just like in passing that I heard them, and they were solid. But I also kind of just wanted to wait and see what the full album experience was like instead of just like going through all these disjointed singles.
That's very valid, honestly. I will say, in terms of my background, like I actually knew of him, I would say 3 years ago. He had a couple singles out. I heard Careful randomly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was on like Instagram or TikTok was around at the time, I want to say. It must have been some kind of social media. But I discovered him on a single Careful, and I thought like, man, this is so different. This is actually like really dope. But like, that's all he had at the moment was that and a couple other like random singles.
Yeah.
So like, I knew of him. I thought he was decent, but it wasn't enough to actually like dive into. Um, since then, I kept up with like him and his features. I would say.
Hmm.
So I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago when we had Isaac on. I recommended Raul, which is somebody else that I found through social media. He has a remix feature with him, and then of course he had the feature on Lovesick with Don Tolliver, and so on and so on. So everything I heard was like, man, this kid's really dope. Notice how I said kid because I thought he was a kid. I was like, man, this kid's really dope. But I didn't really know if he had his own sound yet.
Hmm.
It was just like an additional piece to me in a sense.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, time to actually hear like what is his own vision? Like what is he gonna put out for himself?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here we go.
Also, for our listeners out there, he's 30.
He's 30. Blew my mind away. I had like when I say kid, I literally thought I was like, oh, who's this kid? I'm thinking maybe early 20s at the oldest.
His birthday
But
is Halloween. That's pretty cool.
and it fits with his characteristics. But I mean, yeah, he's a grown man. He's older than me. So that was like almost jarring in a sense, and I'll dive into it why it was such like a an eye opener for me because I feel like what's interesting about this album, even though we normally review hip hop, he's found in the hip hop kind of atmosphere with the features. This
Hmm.
is not a hip hop album, and he doesn't even like claim it to be in a sense.
He does
I
rap on it, but it's
right,
not. Yeah, I wouldn't say it
yeah,
traditionally follows hip hop musical
exactly.
convention. Yeah.
If anything, the main genre I feel like we get out of this is rock, and then there's surprisingly a mix in R&B. This is like the first, well, not the first, but one of the first like rock and R&B mixtures that I've seen in this or done in this type of way. So I don't know. It was a lot going on at once. I'll say that. So I guess coming into it, what did you want to hear from what you heard from like Run It Up and from Modern Jam? What did you envision?
I don't know if I really had a signature sound or aesthetic in mind for like the full project because those two songs are so different. Run It Up kind of has that like I wouldn't call it boom bap. It's got kind of like that horn assembly, and it's like very braggadocious. It's got like a certain kind of like swagger to it.
Mm,
Modern Jam doesn't have that. Modern Jam is
not at
like
all.
Modern Jam is like if you took I don't even know Grandmaster Flash lyrics and laid them over like Daft Punk chopping it up in a club in 1992.
What a combination.
This might
And it
be
worked.
Modern Jam. Yeah, it do or don't need a cam.
And it worked, honestly.
It works, yeah. So, and the thing is, like his part on that is even so removed stylistically. I feel from both of those styles, but it works really well. It reminds me. Brandon said it best. He said it reminds him of the Talking Heads,
Yeah.
and I totally see it in terms of like the intensity and the delivery. Almost a little bit like Freddie Mercury esque, very dramatic in terms of like the delivery. But yeah,
Mm,
none of that is present on Call Me If You Get Lost for Run It Up. It's just like he does like the we gonna run it up in the background. He
right.
does like that, and then he's got a verse. But neither one of them has any of the same level of like effects or anything. So for this, I didn't have necessarily expectations,
Hmm.
but I was definitely looking forward to it because he struck me as the kind of person who is definitely multi-talented when it comes to not only creating a song and producing a sound and being present on a song in a certain way, but also when it comes to just like I guess varying his performances and making his performances more dynamic to match like a certain track as opposed to like
Hmm.
this is what he sounds like and he does the same thing on every song, which I think we already have too much of in the space anyway.
That is true. He does have impressive capability of bringing a few different sounds in this album. I would say.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like his style kind of carries out pretty well through the album, where it's pretty consistent. But there was moments in the album. I feel like there's space in the album. It's like this is brilliant, but I just don't feel like it's consistent enough in a way.
Yeah.
Where I kind of lose myself or lose interest, I will say, throughout the album. I'll say at least for first impressions, like the first time I listened to it, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of thrown off before even pressing play, just because it's such a wide response that I've heard, like from other people, from social media, and how people are reviewing them. Because like on one angle, I heard people was like, "Oh, this is revolutionary. Like this is changing everything," and I heard some other people just like, "And it's all right. Like he's doing his thing, but like it's nothing groundbreaking." So going based off of that and hearing, I love the rollout. Like the rollout itself, I thought was really great. Um, Having Drake sponsor you is a brilliant idea in today's streaming world. Having those like 30-second clips essentially at the beginning of each song, super dope. It's not a full music video for each, but it gives you a pretty cool visual to a style. And it almost, I don't know who mentioned it before, but it like took me back to like a different time almost. It's almost like the 2000s rock sound that I was able to like touch and familiarize myself with it, but it was just kind of like up in the air and not really knowing what's going on. So, with that being said, going into it for the first listen, I found myself the first like four tracks is like, okay, all of these are in the rollout. And I thought all of them was dope because it's something I'm familiar with. But like after that, it was all new music. And I'm not gonna lie, I was in and out, I will say. Um Impossible, I fell off very quickly. I just didn't like the lyrics that much or the message to it. Neighborhood kind of threw me off because it's like almost. I know part of the song is, I don't know if he was homeless or maybe it's something that he experienced that he's singing on, but it's stuff like I made it out the hood and it's just like I need to know more about your background before like claiming something like that. Mood swings was decent, and then like I don't know, it was this thing. I got to Too Easy, and I text Brandon. I was like, I can't explain how upset I am because like the beginning is heavy rock. It's just like literally just like do like the drums is so simple and repetitive, and then it hard cuts to R&B, and it's the best part of the album at the end of the song. And I was like, bro, I thought it was a new song. I was like, he got one. This is the one. And I pull it up and I was like, this is the same song. It's like, I don't know how to feel about it. And I feel like that feeling was consistent for the rest of the album for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think about your first listen? Did anything stand out immediately?
I enjoyed it the first time through just because I liked how varied it was. And I think what he's done is a very good job of basically taking a lot of sounds that are classic and belong in a large sense to like a lot of different artists throughout classic rock, new wave, hardcore, punk, stuff like that. And he's basically taking those sounds and incorporating them into his own kind of repertoire, and he's building up a varied kind of set list or song list because of that. And they're different enough based on like his performance and what he's doing with that sound for you to not necessarily be able to pin down like, oh, who exactly formulated that sound that he's now using, like that kind of thing. So in a way, it's not like interpolation, but at the same time, it feels very influenced, and I think you can really feel or hear like where his influences come from if you sit down and listen to this all the way through. And I don't have a problem with that. I enjoy it, but I think that for people who are a little older listening to this, it might feel derivative. And that was something I thought of right away. I was like, I have a background in like an understanding of classic rock and just like the genres that then outflow from that, whether it's like a little bit of hardcore, a little bit of new wave, whatever else is coming out of that's featured here. And I'm like, this sounds like stuff that I've heard before very closely. Like his performance is good and does differentiate it. But I think that for people who grew up listening to music like that and have like really deep familiarity with it, I think that this would probably fall short. Luckily, I think that the target audience for this is 19-year-olds in art school. So
Man,
I feel like that group not having that familiarity, this is going to be like revolutionary for some people in that
for
sense,
them, yeah.
just in terms of the way it sounds. And it's like they're just because you don't have context, this becomes that this fills that void. And I mean that's probably a generalization. I'm sure it is, but at the same time, that's just what comes to mind given like I don't know. I feel like the demographic also given his link now to Travis is
Mm-hmm.
like a
It's
younger
gonna be a younger
crowd.
crowd.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's a very interesting take. I genuinely agree with everything that you were saying because that was gonna be one of my like questions for you because I don't know about rock. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I do. So you saying that like this is somewhat similar to it, but like it's different enough. Like, do you think this almost respects the classics? Do you think it's almost a disrespect in your own personal opinion?
I wouldn't describe it as disrespect. I think that
Okay.
disrespect is like Greta Van Fleet, who's basically completely ripping off like the Zeppelin formula and just publishing derivative crap by using the
Mm,
same thing. I think that Tizo really does take the time to create tracks that are, if they're not musically unique, let's say in terms of backing, there's something being added to the mix that is different in some way. Whether it's like something he's talking about, or some way in which he's delivering lines, or a feature that gets added in here or there. And
mm,
there's just like different songs, all just really do sound like different things. But there was never a point where I was like, this is riffing this, and I could be sure of it. It was like, I know that this is inspired by this sound, but I can't pin it to one exact thing. And I think that's the mark of like someone who's very clearly influenced and is proud and or not proud of, but maybe really inspired by their influences,
mm-hmm.
but is still exercising their own creativity over the top and saying, I'm not just gonna remake something I like. I'm gonna make my own
Put
thing
my own twist to it, right?
and really show people that like this is what I'm into.
I'm curious then, in your personal opinion, because this is definitely something that I had. I'm not gonna say I struggled with it, but it's something that came up in my mind a lot.
Hmm.
Him being 30 seems off, and there's nothing wrong with being 30, but I just feel like the message in the delivery, if his target audience is the younger crowd, then fine. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It is a solid fan base that will support you till you die. But it also feels, I don't want to call it like immature, but I just feel like it's lacking any kind of substance in terms of like, what do you show for you being 30?
I think
It,
this is where we should go to Brandon's comments.
yes. So that's actually perfect. Did you read it already?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Should I just go through all of it?
Yeah, go for it. And I think we can discuss right off of that because that's a good point that you brought up.
Yes. And so, okay, so I'll just go. Brandon left us a quick paragraph because as soon as I told him we was doing Teasel Touchdown, he immediately was like, "Man, I hate that I'm missing this." Um, but essentially, this is what he wants to share with us. I respect a lot of the creativity and vision of this, but despite some moments of brilliance, it falls very flat for me. I think if Tizo used his singing chops and presence to blend the genre rather than switching between them, he could have made something special. I have some major issues with maturity level on the album. Lack of substance is one thing, but being actively juvenile is just a turnoff. Any moments that have an R&B feel, though, I feel he really shines. The pipes and performance are top notch, so despite my reservations on this, I still think he could win me over. Dude could be the next weekend if he wasn't trying to be a one man broadcast. So, Jasper, do you want to start off?
Valid.
Based.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like yeah, each song seems to, like I said, it really draws very clearly from maybe a single genre, maybe two if there's a breakdown, like there isn't Too Easy, like we talked about.
Mm,
But there isn't, yeah, there isn't a lot of fusion. It feels like everything is very directly inspired and controlled, and in that way, I think that the singles really stand alone well as singles. But I think this falls apart when you put it together in the context of an album.
absolutely. Yes.
So yeah, lack of substance. I couldn't tell you what the themes are of a lot of these. Honestly, the only one I could really think of off the top of my head is neighborhood.
Yeah, Neighborhood was the most actual consistent story.
Yeah,
Like from top to bottom, each verse actually dives into like uh, the story behind what is assuming he's living in the hood, have a terrible neighborhood around him. There's a moment where it seems like he was homeless as well, and he was dealing with that. So I feel like that was the best storytelling
I just
in
took my
terms of like
TV out the
actually
bedroom.
giving a
Now it
message to
seems
your
easier
listener.
to sleep.
But
I
like
just
like
put oil
like
on
you
my
and Brandon
door
said,
hinge.
it just
Cause late at night I
feels like this isn't something
hold
a
on.
30-year-old should want to or should have um in his like mind to express to the listener,
yeah.
because a lot of the stuff it feels like almost almost teenage nagging, and I don't want to like belittle it, but it's stuff like daddy mama drama. Just like if you actually pull up the lyrics, it's like this is stuff you do when you're literally 15,
Yeah,
like half your age. When you're 30 years old, it's certain stuff you should be mature enough to express, or at least if that is something you're going through, find a better way to tell the story. I just feel like it's very broken down, and that didn't spread it out to the rest of the album. Where like I actually decided to pull out the lyrics, and like some of it is really dope stuff, and some of it is touching stuff, but like it's very surface level, and I didn't know if maybe that's something that's more familiar in the rock genre that I just had to understand,
it
because
depends.
like it's more about the music, but like
So,
it was definitely something I was like, man, what are you saying?
yeah, so this that's kind of that brings up a good point because we're starting to see it in hip hop now that the genre's getting on in age, but we really see it a lot in rock, right? Where it's like people reminisce and tend to put on rose colored glasses around like rock as a genre because enough time has passed where popular consensus, but also just like critical consensus, I think, has really kind of defined what are like the really, really good albums in rock, the really good albums, and then the good albums. And that's pretty much what remains. A lot of stuff
Mhm.
that, you know, isn't that good or is very derivative, and there's a lot of it, has fallen through the cracks and people don't listen to it or don't even know about it anymore. And that happens for people who are older too. You know, your memory fades with time. You maybe don't, recognize or remember something that you liked a lot, even if it wasn't necessarily that great, because society kind of, or taste, whatever, decided that it wasn't it.
Mhm.
So you get this rose colored glasses effect where it's like, oh yeah, like rock music was so much better than like a lot of the stuff we have now. It's like it wasn't. It's just that now you're looking at only the hits and not a bunch of the other crap that was coming out at the same time. And I think we're starting to see that in hip hop a bit, where it's like the 80s and the 90s music coming out in the genre at that point. For every I don't know, Me Against the World, there's some other awful garbage solo
Mhm.
project or something, right? And it's like I think that this, as much as I hate to say it, I think that this would fall toward the latter half, where it's like it's new and it's interesting, or it can be new and interesting, but because of the way it presents itself, and also just like the influences that it pulls in that way, being immature, I think that it would tend to fall more toward the wayside going forward,
Mhm.
like long term. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, just because it's a debut album.
Right, it's their first album.
But I don't think that being the subject matter being as juvenile as it is doesn't many favors.
Mhm.
I also don't think it really helps that he sounds very young.
That is also true. Like I honestly thought he was a kid. I thought he was super young. He kind of presents himself in a way. Obviously, fashion sense nowadays is kind of hard to judge just because it's kind of up in there. People wear whatever they want, and it becomes a style. But like even his appearance and how he carries himself in interviews, the way he answered questions, he seems and he portrays himself as someone who's very young. He wants to connect with a young crowd, and it lacks that umph. And what you just mentioned there, that's something that's gonna always happen. There's always gonna be hits. There's always gonna be star albums, and there's nothing wrong with having not like a filler, but just an album that has its own time and place.
Yeah.
But like, how is this going to impact him going forward? Because in my opinion, I don't understand what direction he takes next. If this is the message that he has to give, what's the next step essentially? because I don't even know what he's trying to express here. So what is he going to be expressing going forward?
You know who he sounds like? I just realized. And maybe this is a hot take. I'm sure that people will disagree with me if this ever like if the fans get a hold of it. But I think
this is perfect.
I think he sounds a lot like X.
Interesting. In what way? Just curious.
The pitch. He's at that like higher pitch, higher part of like the general registry. Think about X's performance on Money with Maddox, where he's like, you know, the iconic line, "Spin on my dick like a Beyblade," like that like all that whole verse, that delivery. A lot of stuff on here reminds me of that.
Like the rock portion and everything like that.
Yeah, just like and being in like the higher register of like speaking voice. And I don't know if that's maybe like a good thing, a bad thing, but I think that's kind of why I associated him with being younger, is because he reminds me of an artist who I know was young at the time when he put that music out.
That's very valid, honestly. It's interesting because I was actually going to ask you who's an artist that he reminds you of, because that was going to be, I didn't put the actual question in the doc, but Brandon and I talked about it extensively. In his opinion, he brought up Brockhampton. I feel like he was trying to do essentially what Brockhampton was doing, but just kind of didn't hit the mark.
Yeah, I don't really know Brockhampton well enough to call out a voice like that, but I got you.
I know. I literally told Brandon, I was like, Jasper, won't. He's gonna be like, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And like for me, because honestly, it hit me. I'm not even joking. Like 2 hours ago, maybe before we started recording, and I could not put a finger on it, but you know who he's essentially not trying to be, but who is doing what he's trying to do in this album, but significantly better? Steve Lacy.
Oh,
Steve Lacy has a heavy rock influence and heavy R&B influence. He's able to flow it much more smoothly within his songs. He has that rock lifestyle. He's able to pull in the young people with the TikTok influence. Like, he is essentially trying to be what Steve Lacy did successfully. And even though Steve Lacy has had some terrible performances on his tour and it's taken a hit on his performance, I would say as an actual artist and career style or career success, Steve Lacy wipes the board with him. And what I love about Teezo Touchdown is the fact that like his R&B, I think, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think his singing is filled with passion. It's filled with like a message, and it just flows perfectly within every song that I hear him singing on. And like, obviously I don't want him to take a route of like, oh, I'm going to be R&B now. But like, if you can exercise and expand on like his voice, I think that would be more beneficial than any other style or genre that he can tap into, because there's certain parts in the album, don't get me wrong, I don't want to be too critical of it, but You Thought and Too Easy are the biggest ones. And there was another song I can't remember. They're the biggest like obvious moments where it's like, this is clearly rock, hard cut, clearly R&B, and the R&B section is so much better. It's so good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I just feel like if he can find a way, it's essentially what Tyler does with like the 10th song of every album, where it's just like 3 songs mixed to one, 2 songs mixed to one. That's what he's doing on all these songs. But I feel like in his art style or in his own personal style, it'll be much more beneficial if he can blend it all into one.
Someone stopped me and said, "Hey dude, have you seen the new Spider-Man?" I said, "Not yet, been really busy, but I promise I'ma see it when I can."
That's what I heard the most impactful lyrics. That's the ones that I actually connected with the most. So, in my personal opinion, I just think if he could stretch out the R&B and find new, unique ways to make it like benefit his craft, that's the best route, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and he doesn't have to just stick to R&B. I just think that if he doesn't necessarily just wear his influences so prominently and finds a way to integrate them with what his own style is. We don't really know what that is yet based on this project.
Very true.
So I think once we get that, then we'll start getting a clear picture of like what he's going to emerge as in that way. I will say I was just like listening to some clicks through of like these different songs. I really actually don't mind the title track. Okay.
Oh, I like Okay.
Yeah. But it's got such clear instrumentation on it. It is very obviously "Say It Ain't So" by Weezer. Like, it's the same.
Oh,
Donna, Donna, say it ain't so. Like,
yeah,
it's the same thing.
That's extremely obvious.
It's the same song. Nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, like, maybe a different kind of riff. It feels very, very like late 90s, like 90s, early 2000s influenced in that way. Although with like a couple tracks.
Bro, it's funny that you say that because like the biggest takeaway out of everything, like wrapping everything into like one statement.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you would like this take. I told this take to Brandon, and for the most part, he agreed with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you take, because he's 30 years old.
Yeah.
If you take Teezo Touchdown,
mm-hmm.
go 10 years back, he drops this as a 20-year-old in 2013. This would be a top trending album.
Would it?
This would hit every record.
What else was coming out in 2013? I mean, we had
around 2013. We had Acid Rap. We had
Yeezus,
which him and Kanye would have been phenomenal.
Macklemore's The Heist.
Like, honestly, actually though, because I want to look it up, because 2013 is a big one. You have Acid Rap. You have Nothing Was the Same. You have Yeezus, Random Access Memory, Doris.
Magna Carta, Holy Grail, Jay-Z, yeah.
Literally, My Name Is My Name, Born Center,
yeah.
AM,
Live ASAP. Watching movies,
Indicut, Because of the Internet,
Indicut,
like
that is a
Wolf.
Oh, that's a year.
That was an insane year. But like, imagine him putting out an album. It wouldn't be as big as these, but like, it would fit much better, in my opinion, if he was 20 years old singing about the same stuff in 2013. Think about when you're in 2013. Where were you in 2013? I was in high school. If I heard this as a sophomore, it's like, okay, yeah, I like this.
I don't know. I feel like the level of influence of like early 90s stuff just wasn't trendy then. So I don't know if sonically it would go over as well. I think that sonically it goes over better now, but thematically it fits in better then. Because I mean, when we say thematically, the first thing I think of is Tyler and
Jesus.
No, maybe. Just like Wolf, like that album.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like,
oh yeah, that theme, absolutely.
IFHY, and like how childish those lyrics are, and how that became a classic around that time. So it's like, yeah, the lyrics would fit. I don't think the music necessarily would. Can we also just like talk about the irony real quick that the last track is called "The Original Is Better" after everything we've said about all these songs and how they draw from their influences? It's like, ooh, damn, even he knows. Like, what?
Pain. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I just want to I kind of want to go through and like see if we can spot what the different influences are as far as like what bands or what songs he's emulating, but I'm sure we'd be here all night.
I was gonna say, the thing is, like, that's the unique part about me coming to it, because I don't have that rock background. So like, it was enough where I'm like, this sounds like MTV, but it's like anything past that, it's like, it's a generic rock sound in my opinion. It wasn't deep enough.
Yeah, I mean, okay, sounds like Weezer. Neighborhood sounds like Jack Johnson.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. At least to me it does. And then he's got just like a lot of riffs and just choruses that sound pretty inspired, that's all. No,
yeah, I mean, he plays his cards and it's very in your face. There's nothing hiding about it. Even God, I'm listening to Too Easy right now. Like the beginning of the song, it's just not my style. So it's like unbearable. I literally looked up like Too Easy on YouTube, and the actual like 12-hour loop of the ending of the song had more views than the actual song, and I'm like,
I want you to do me a favor real quick. I want you to listen to the first. Let's see. How many seconds is this? I'd like you to listen to the first 20 seconds of Stranger, the second to last track. Yep. Go ahead and listen to those 20 seconds. That guitar riff with that delay and that just a little bit of like warping to it, not real gain distortion. But just
I've
listen.
definitely heard this before.
Yeah,
but I don't know
listen to that riff, all right?
Yeah.
All right, now stop. Look up the song More Than a Feeling by Boston and play that song. And you will see what I'm talking about. It has a slower fade in, but it's immediate.
Jesus.
Right?
It's literally the exact same thing.
Right?
And like this has been done in other songs too.
Yeah, Boston was the originator.
Now I'm curious then, because I did do this because normally I only look up samples for hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many actually like recorded. No, not recorded. I don't know the word, but actually noted in. Fuck, I can't think of the word. But like, how many samples are actually like
interpolations was what you're looking for, where it's like the melody is being borrowed, but it's not being reproduced, or like there's no actual sampling of the source track.
Right.
So like Lil Uzi Vert doing his whole thing on Pink Tape, where he's like saying "hate being sober," that's like interpolation, right? Stuff like that.
I'm just curious then, but how do you sleep at night? Because the other thing is, I mean, don't get me wrong, that is going along with what I'm saying, but it's also like, are they actually jotted down? Like, is it already confirmed essentially?
I have no idea.
Like, with hip hop, it's very easy for me to sit down and be like, all right, who sampled this? I can Google this and find out the exact song that samples it, because that's how hip hop works. I don't know if someone has actually sat down, or like if you can go to whosampledthis.com and actually pull up these songs and be like, oh, this is a direct like pull from this song. So I would be very curious, because like you've mentioned it a couple times, how obviously ripped off are some of these songs.
Yeah. I'm going to look it up because I'm very curious. Yeah, I mean, Genius doesn't have anything about it.
Yeah, no. I'm on Genius right now, and it's really not. The other thing is, and this is another thing I actually wanted to get into.
Oh, I just found a Reddit post about this.
Oh, there you go.
Posted in r/samples. It says, help,
Obvious.
Settle a debate if this song by Boston is sampled in Teezo Touchdown, his new album. My brother found that if you listen to More Than a Feeling by Boston and then listen to Stranger by Teezo, the intro and background guitars sound very similar. A few slightly different chords, I think, but still. Need help with settling a debate. He says it's heavily inspired. I say it's heavily inspired. He says it's sampled. And then...
Because how do samples work in hip-hop? That's the thing. I have no idea. I mean, in rock.
They don't really exist? I don't know.
He's creating the first rock sample.
Well, because think about it, right? It's like in rock, you are... I guess the
music comes first.
Not even that. I don't think it does at all. I mean, a lot of songwriters will write a song and then put music to it.
Okay.
But what I think is the difference is that hip hop has always been, at least from the start, and it's different now and it's more varied now, but originally it was spinning records and taking sounds from records and producing something new out of pre-existing sounds.
Really DJing, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas rock music, for the most part, for a long time, has been, if you are a band and you are performing and producing that same music yourself on stage. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nobody's up there playing the instruments that would make up a backing track for like...
I was about to say, there's no backing track.
Unless you're like Chance the Rapper using like a big band or whatever.
Right.
But like that style. But with that being said, it's like, you know, is there a case to be made for samples in this way? I mean, there's precedent even legally for this to not be a thing, like, and not allowed to be a thing. Look at Coldplay and Joe Satriani, where he sued them over "Rule the World" because the melody was just lifted, and he won. Mm-hmm. Sam Smith got sued by Tom Petty. Tom Petty won and got half of the earnings of the song "Stay With Me" because "Stay With Me" was a copy of "Won't Back Down." So I don't know. I don't think you can really, unless you are directly taking something and modifying it super significantly, I don't think you can necessarily sample rock in the same way, because to sample is to modify an original, whereas these people are basically taking a chord progression or something else that's like a heavy hook that's like relied on, and basically just twisting it into something else, or like putting their own spin on it. So
I mean, yeah, honestly, that makes sense because like the other thing I was gonna say, I feel like you can't sample rock into rock. Like you can sample hip hop into hip hop, but you can't sample rock into rock because you have to essentially change the chords. Something about the actual music. Like you can take rock music and put it in rap songs, but like Diddy owes Sting $5,000 a day. It's stuff like that. Or like I can see it working there, but like
yeah,
I just don't know how
I
you
mean,
can
look
sample rock into other rock.
yeah, look at and it doesn't even have to be rock, just like music that is more organic in the way it's produced, that doesn't necessarily just come from like setting up tracks in like FL Studio or whatever. Yeah. I mean, look at Shape of My Heart by Sting and how it got used in Lucid Dreams, which is, I think, still the top streamed. No, it's not. It's up there, though. It's like one of the top streamed rap songs of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, yeah, I mean, a lot of times the interpretation that is made requires source material that's produced organically, at least in some way. So I don't know. I think it would be tough to modify an existing piece of rock music enough to the point where it could be on an album like this with full commercial licensing. Because I think a lot of bands are very protective. That's part of why. That's part of why. What is it? Nostalgia Ultra isn't on streaming. Is because Frank Ocean is just singing directly over a couple of songs. He sings over some Coldplay song for the first track, and then, man, why
just did whatever he wanted.
Why am I blanking on the names of the songs on this project? But the one where he's singing over Hotel California, the Eagles never cleared it. So Strawberry Swing is the first track. That's the Coldplay one. American something, Heartbreak, whatever it's called.
I haven't listened to Nostalgia Ultra in a long time.
I listened to it like 2 weeks ago.
It's been a long time.
Come on.
It's gonna kill you.
Yeah. It's and then Nature Feels, he's singing over Electric Feel by MGMT, which is like a famous song.
Right. You can't hide that.
American Wedding. That is the basically like 2/3 of, or maybe more than 2/3 of the Eagles' Hotel California that he's just singing over. So there's no attempt to sample it. Well, I mean, it was supposed to come out as a mixtape, and as long as you're not selling it, it doesn't really matter.
That's true.
But in terms of like putting it on streaming well after the fact, like the Eagles are just not into it. So
100%.
It's not up there. Yeah.
You got to protect your craft. I mean, like you said, it is the live performances that they only could do. So they should get credited for it. Well, I guess kind of coming to the end of it, what do you think is next? Because I kind of tapped on it a little bit. There's two things that I want to see. I want to see him to expand on R&B, because I think his voice is his strongest suit. I think it carries him much further than anything else, especially his lyrics. And two, I just want him to create an entire sound by himself. I don't know how the production worked in terms of this album. I don't know whose hands touched on it or how it came into a complete picture, but I need him, mainly him, to come up with his own sound, his own tracks. Even if you need to sample or take an interpretation of something, make it more. Just change it in some way. I need him to develop his own sound and use his voice for me. And that I think I'll be much more excited for the next project if he does that.
I agree. I like the idea of fleshing out and developing those R&B bits and making that into more of an established sound. I'd also like to hear him go heavier. I think I was kind of expecting him to have a heavier, more serious, more dramatic kind of tone based on Modern Jam. I mean, I know I didn't go in with expectations, but I think that was just kind of like something that I was looking forward to potentially. Because I think he fits really well on that track. So I would love to hear him make something that is heavier, that doesn't draw so heavily on very pre-established tropes or musical styles within rock music. I don't think he needs heavy distortion guitar to make a heavy sound. I mean, modern jam doesn't need that, and it comes off great. So I would like to see that. I like to see like heavier, harder hitting beats, and generally just like greater energy level with like more, I guess, dramatic delivery.
But honestly, I fully agree with that. And make sure the dramatic delivery is not the feeling of a teenager.
Yeah, valid.
I want to feel like you're 30.
This is not 17.
Yeah, no. Act like a 30-year-old, please.
Yeah.
I know you have something greater to tell. If you are actually homeless and I hear that in your music, express it.
There you go.
Should we do grades then?
Let's do it.
All right.
But before we do, let's just say Brandon, for all of his comments, did go ahead and award this a C.
That's what I was going to start with. So Brandon, mixing with his paragraph there, he gave it a C, which I can see, honestly. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. I think that this is like it's a fun project, and a couple of these songs, sure, going into the rotation are being pulled up in some context, or totally valid. That being said, as a project, I like I said, I think it falls apart a little bit. I would give it a B-.
Okay. Honestly, I'm probably between you two, because like there really is some pockets of like, man, this is good.
Yeah,
this is
there's
really
like something is here.
This is like phenomenal. He's got his own sound. The singing's great. Like I said, the end of Too Easy, I stopped it and restarted it because it was that good. So with that being said, I have high expectations for him. I know he can do something deeper. So I'm going to sit between you two. I'm going to do a C+. I think it's around average. I think it's fair to say C is an average. I think it's around average. I think he has potential to be something great.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got to come out. It's got to break the shell and come out.
So, yeah, I mean, I totally agree. There's like a level of artistic growth that needs to happen or develop for that to come through. Yeah.
Look, if other people see it, and not even just because Drake was the big famous one, but like there was other people also mentioning like, oh, we heard his album and we generally like it. So like, if people who are already in the industry, who know much more about music, sees a light in him and has used him in his music, I have hope. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But he's got to do it himself.
So before we do switch over to recommendations, I want to touch on critical reception as well.
Yeah. Oh yes, we didn't go over that. Yeah.
So I think this is funny, just because, they're always so they have such a finger on the pulse, right? Our friends over at Pitchfork.
I was waiting for a Pitchfork. What did they give them?
God, I hate these fuckers. So it was reviewed by our boy, everybody's favorite critic at Pitchfork, Alphonse Pierre.
Yep.
The same one who publicly came out about hating Kid Cudi and the whole thing, and then still is assigned. He's still assigned Kid Cudi albums to review.
Of course he is. That's their job.
So he gave How Do You Sleep at Night a 5.3, which is on the harder side, but I think it's not entirely unjustified. His title line, or his lead kind of paragraph opener says, on his debut, the suddenly inescapable singer goes looking for a mashup of Texas rap, pop punk, and R&B original enough to match his fashion sense.
Wow.
Which, technically...
that actually is... For Pitchfork, that's pretty good.
That's, spot on. But here's the thing, right?
That's nailing it.
I think that in the weird, topsy-turvy Pitchfork world, the thing that saved him is the fact that he has those rock elements. Because Alphonse Pierre was also the one who reviewed Utopia. And what do you think he gave Utopia?
I know it wasn't that high.
Yeah, so he gave How Do You Sleep at Night a 5.3. Utopia has a 5.7.
Jesus Christ.
And
you hit some and you miss some. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and he's the same guy who gave Man on the Moon 3 a 4.9. So I'm gonna stop going. I'm gonna stop going through his there.
Yeah, don't do that. You're gonna fish yourself off.
I know. I do wanna find some other.
He gave No Name an 8.8. All right, enough about Pitchfork.
Mid. What else we got? Here we go. Okay, so.
Got a 5.9.
In terms of some other reception,
he gave Sexy Red an 8.8. Why am I going through this? Wow.
Oh boy.
Jesus.
Studio albums. Why is this? Here we go. Here it is. Okay. So Metacritic, does have a 56 out of 100, which is like almost on par with Pitchfork.
Yep.
Hip Hop DX.
On par with us.
Hip Hop DX gave it a 2.7 out of 5.
Okay. Out of 5. Okay.
NME, so New Musical Express, British music website, brand, whatever, gave it a 4 out of 5.
Wow. Okay.
And then Slant Magazine gave it a 1.5 out of 5.
Jeez. I mean, averaging out, it's pretty much where we sit at.
It is. And I think that this is like the first time we've had like full consensus with critics on pretty much anything, which is interesting.
Very true.
That said, like
it's easy to break this down.
Yeah, given
there's no depth to this.
Yeah, given where they sit on other things, I don't necessarily know that they arrived at the score in the way that we would agree with, but that's fine. I mean, whatever, that's their job.
Yeah, I was about to say. We all came to the same conclusion. That's honestly what matters, and I'm not sure if that's something scary for him or it's something promising.
Also, I'm looking now. I have the track listing pulled up. I have a list of all of the producers.
Oh yeah, I pulled that up too on Genius, right?
No, I have a Wikipedia, but there's only one who I've ever heard of on this entire list. Benny X, yeah.
Benny X, yep.
Everybody else,
one I saw.
Everybody else doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, pretty much. Like no clickable names, no nothing.
It's funny that, and I know we've already talked about the topic and we come to it, but I'm gonna keep going. It's funny that you say all that because one of the things that we talked about, we was trying to find an artist that it reminds me of. Mine was Steve Lacy. Brandon was Brockhampton. I was telling Brandon like I was having difficulties comparing the two because like Brockhampton's a group, but he was saying like this definitely like understand Touchdown has the last say in it, but there's so many moving parts and there's so many people involved in this.
Definitely,
it's honestly more of a group project, but like I hate to say, I'm not gonna say Brandon was like 100% correct, but like I understand his vision now because all these people you can compare to Brockhampton. They're a bunch of, I don't want to say no names in a rude way, but like just people that are upcoming in their career. They're getting established and they're all working together. So you're right. The biggest name is Benny X. Everything else is like, who are these people?
And even Benny X was, I think, had a pretty quick like meteoric rise. You know.
Yeah. Especially because
his Wikipedia article is like that much.
He's making a name for himself. He has not made it.
Yeah. I will say if this is like Brockhampton but just one guy, does that just make him Brock? Had to get one in there.
One joke. You got your one
single joke.
I will say this. It just because like it needs to be said for people who may not know who it is. Do not get it confused. Brockhampton is 1,000 times better than this album. So like us comparing it to Brockhampton, please do not bring Brockhampton down. It is a great band with even phenomenal classic albums. Please do not let this not have you listen to Brockhampton. But anyway, recommendations.
Nice.
Do you have your two?
Yeah, I do. Whenever you're ready.
All right. I'll do the first one then. I got two classics coming out. I don't know why this song came into my head. I was sitting at the Brown Bank in office, and Jenna was sitting next to me. I was just like, Jenna, and I was like, what is that melody? And it took me like 10 minutes to be like, Georgia. I was like, how did that come into my head? But anyway, I'm doing a very classic song by Ludacris featuring several people. Georgia, which is a sampled from Stevie Wonder? Wait, hold on. Is this Stevie Wonder? Uh-oh, I should know this. Wait, who? Oh no, this is bad. I'm exposing myself.
What have you done?
I can't believe I've done this.
This is like how you two didn't know that there was a Stevie Wonder sample for Frank Ocean for Blonde.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like him with the vocoder or whatever it is.
Anyway,
close to
phenomenal song.
Yeah.
I've exposed myself.
Expose him.
What is your first song?
So I'm going with songs that I feel inspired the album we reviewed. So my first one is going to be Boston, More Than a Feeling. One of the most pivotal, influential albums, Boston by Boston, in that space in rock and roll. You should listen to this album. It is so damn good. And Boston was basically one guy who lived on the East Coast, spoiler alert, Boston, and he basically fabricated a lot of his own music equipment, and wound up developing equipment that created a lot of these new sounds that wound up shifting what became like the sound of classic rock in terms of instrumentation. And when he got signed, he was basically given a band to play with and producers and whatever else. And they wanted him to reproduce the album in their studio to actually be the finished version, because he basically presented them with the album finished. And he was like, I want this to be my first album. He simply couldn't reproduce it in their studio because he didn't have any of his custom gear. So he basically had an engineer in that studio in LA pretending to work with them while they all flew back and recorded the actual album again in his basement.
Jesus Christ.
And it's like it's a standout album. Boston by Boston, More Than a Feeling is an absolute banger. And it's on the Grand Theft Auto 5 soundtrack, so I'm sure you've heard it in passing there too.
I've probably heard it.
Yeah.
That's actually so dope. Talk about influential, freaking making the music instruments.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'll go on to the second one. Also, I need to say it myself. George's Ray Charles. I just didn't go back far enough. It's another black classic. Second song, Rich Gang, Tap Out. Absolute banger. Absolute banger. This needs to be hitting the club nonstop. Bring it back. Tap Out is an absolute classic. This is what people used to twerk to.
Man, 2013. You weren't kidding about going back to that 2013 stuff.
I told you, man. I had a moment. Rich Gang featuring Lil Wayne, Birdman, Nicki Minaj, Future, Mac Main. Tap Out. It's a classic.
Iconic.
All right. We'll close this out.
My last one is going to be Say It Ain't So, Weezer.
I love it. I love it.
Had to do it to him. I mean,
you had a heavy rock week, obviously.
with this album bringing up memories. Also, the bridge on that song is undefeated.
That's fair. I fully agree with that.
And I actually was lucky enough to see this live in 2021. And
really?
Weezer still has it live, 100%.
That's pretty dope, actually.
Chops,
major chops. This is essentially my, this is as far as I go. Guitar Hero.
There you go.
This song of Guitar Hero.
All right. You're embarrassing us.
All right, let's cut it. Nothing's wrong with Guitar Hero.
And Seed.